This is a true story from the streets. And if you listen, it just might change your life for the better. All the events I'm telling you about happened less than 24 hours ago because it involves real victims and real police officers. I've altered some of the names and AI generated all the images, but I assure you, what you're seeing and hearing is as close as I can get without violating anybody's privacy. The point of this video is to answer a question. What is the point of practicing Stoicism? How does it produce real results in the real world? How did Stoic resiliency literally just save somebody's life less than 24 hours ago? Well, let me tell you about it. I'm a police sergeant here in Florida. I work in a mid-sized town that's known for being swampy with lots of gators. That's an important fact that has bearing on the story. What you also need to know is that this part of Florida gets a lot of rain in July, August, during the late summer. On this shift, we were experiencing what can only be described as a deluge. Things were flooding, visibility was about zero. It was as close in intensity as to what you would see during a hurricane. It was just the wind wasn't that high. So my officers get a 911 call. It's about an elderly man with dementia who's gone missing from a retirement community. He was out walking his dog hours ago and hasn't been seen since. He had no cell phone, no wallet, no devices, or anything with GPS. That would have made this a quick story. And I guess I should introduce you to our victim here. His name is Jimmy. He's an elderly man with cognitive problems. He gets easily lost and confused, but he loves to go on walks with his trusty companion, Sonny. I gave the officers a little bit of time to solve the problem. Often, with things like this, the person turns up in a common area, visiting with a friend, or just hanging out at their favorite burger place. None of those things happened. The officers searched the large retirement community, and the security staff had been zipping around on golf carts, going from place to place, asking everyone if they had seen Jimmy and Sonny. Between the delay in reporting and giving the officers a little time to check all the normal spots, Jimmy had been missing for about 3 hours, and everyone was starting to get really worried, especially with the heavy rains and all the ponds and lakes in the area. Some people were starting to fear that the worst had happened. I'm going to fast forward through a lot of police procedure and the missing persons playbook type of things here. I'm going to fast forward to about 3 a.m. At this point, the officers and I had been searching in the rain for about 6 hours, and we had tried a lot of things. A reverse 911 call, asking everyone within a mile radius to call if they see Jimmy or Sonny. No results. We tried to get drones in the air since the community is surrounded by dense forest and swamps, but the drones just couldn't fly in a storm. We asked for a helicopter, but we got the same reply. Sorry, it's just too dangerous. We posted on social media. No tips, no clues. We boloed the surrounding agencies, but none of them could find Jimmy either. We did a door-to-door canvass of the neighborhood, speaking to everyone, checking every single yard. No luck, no Jimmy, no Sonny. We called detectives for assistance. They came out and tried to help. We checked so many surveillance cameras and Ring doorbell cameras. Nothing. He hadn't been seen for hours and hours and was last seen walking down the road near the north side of the community. We requested bloodhounds from Department of Corrections, who are supposed to be the absolute best at tracking. 2 different bloodhounds both tracked to a small trail in the woods alongside the community, but then they both circled back to the community entrance. Nothing. Nothing at all. At this point, Jimmy had been missing for close to 8 hours. Everybody was tired. Everyone was already exhausted from all the walking and searching in the rain. It had been a lot of looking and no finding, a lot of failure, trying things, making efforts, and things were just falling flat. When you reach the point in a search like this, and you've already given it a noble effort, things start to reach a tipping point. You have taken every reasonable effort, you've done your job, and even went the extra mile. You've already been exposed to the elements for hours, being tired, soaking wet, frustrated. The excuses and justifications will start. Everyone was leaning towards the old scale back the search, leave a skeleton crew, let somebody sit with a wife, issue a bolo. Basically, throw our hands up and say, we did our best. I've seen it go this way 1,000 times. Many leaders in my shoes would have made the practical decision. There are many ways to justify this type of decision, both to yourself and to the public, especially after you've legitimately made a strong effort, especially after you've followed all the guidelines and steps, especially when even the family is saying, you guys have already done so much. It's expected and it's understandable. And it fell on me to make the call, to stop burning resources, to let the officers come in out of the rain, to move to an administrative posture, and then adopt a wait and see approach. It was up to me to end the grind for the officers who were already dirty, soaked, and exhausted. This is where Stoic resiliency changes the picture. This is where thinking like a Stoic comes into play. The decision I was expected to make is something that occurs within my own mind. The philosophy I live by also occurs within my mind. My goal in life is not to be comfortable. It's not to be popular, and it is not to live stress-free. My goal, what drives me, is to be excellent. My goal is to behave with virtue. I know for a fact that the hard decision is almost always the right decision. I know for a fact that things that prevent us from being excellent and achieving our goals are the same two things over and over again. Those two things are fear and laziness. Listen, I'm not immune to fear and laziness. I'm just aware of them. They whisper in your ear. Nobody expects you to do more. You've done enough. People will judge you for doing too much. The officers will gossip about you if you push them too hard. This is going to be embarrassing if you are wrong. And if you stop, you can go get a warm coffee and sit in your car, dry off. You can watch some Netflix. Fear and laziness will serve up a buffet of excuses and justifications. They will tempt you with relief from all the discomfort you are feeling at the moment. I was at the command post while officers complained about similar things, and everyone was looking to me to call off the search. And I'll be completely honest with you. I wanted to do exactly that. I was hurting. My boots were completely waterlogged. My uniform was plastered to my skin, and I was basically shivering even though it was August. The thought of climbing into the heated cab of my patrol car, just turning the key, was screaming at me. I wanted to quit, just like everybody else. I wanted to say we did our best and just call it a night. That little voice in my head was working overtime. I was miserable, and honestly, I was desperately wanting a way out. That little voice inside my head was screaming at me. I stood there and I was feeling all that. I was looking down at the maps with nearly every area checked off. And I looked down at the photos of Jimmy and Sonny, and I thought to myself, you need to take a moment here. You also need to make a decision. So I asked myself, what would a strong leader do right now? What would a good man do right now? If Marcus Aurelius and David Goggins were both standing here judging me, what would they say? All of that silenced that whining voice inside my head. And I made a hard decision. I called the officers to the command post. I let them refuel with water and pizza, and then I made a short speech. It wasn't epic or as motivational as it might be if I were telling you some dramatic story. I just laid out the facts. Look, we're all wet and tired. I know it's frustrating. I know it feels like we've checked everywhere, but we haven't. There's still the woods and the swamps surrounding the property. If he isn't in the community and we've checked all of that, then there's only one place left to look. At this point, I held up the photo of Jimmy and Sonny and I showed it to everyone. I'm going to try to save this man. I'm going to search every square inch, and I'm going to keep going until I drop if I have to. I know some of you have been on the clock for 18 hours straight at this point. So I'm making this voluntary. Nobody's forcing you to stay. You can go ahead and head in, but I'm not giving up. And all I need to know is who's coming with me. To their credit, every single officer passed the gut check. Not one person walked away to their warm car. All of them just needed to hear, this isn't over, and we're going to go all the way this time. We started the grid search. We started in a massive construction site that was next to the last point seen. We spent 45 minutes slogging through the mud and debris in there. Absolutely no luck. After that, I turned to the newest officer on the team. She had been especially diligent during the search, and I asked her, if you were in charge here, if you had to place a bet, where do you think we're going to find him? She thought for a moment. She looked up at me. She said, he is somewhere in the woods. There's some nasty areas where nobody wants to go. I bet he's there since we've checked everything else. And that just rang true to me. The flooded woods in the swamp west of the community. That place that nobody wanted to be. The place where nobody wanted to go. So I grabbed the officers and said, hey, let's go. We got into the swampy woods and started trudging through. And it was absolute misery. Guys were slipping in the mud, dropping down to one knee in a thick muck, just pulling themselves back up. One officer rolled an ankle hard on a submerged root. He let out a grunt, but he shook it off and just kept limping forward. On the lookout for snakes and gators and fighting through the flooded areas, we walked back into the woods a ridiculous distance. Nobody was really complaining anymore. They had fully bought into my crazy plan, and they were showing pure grit. They were yelling, Jimmy, Sonny, Jimmy, Sonny, deeper and deeper into the woods. Flashlights started dying because we had been searching for so long. Jimmy, Sonny, still deeper into the woods. More swamp, still deeper in. It was more swamp than woods at this point. There was some discussion of how far we were willing to go. And I said, just keep going. Deeper into the woods. Jimmy, Sonny. Then, in the night, we hear it. Faint. Arf. The officer at the front froze like a statue. Shh. Everybody shut up. He yelled out again. Jimmy, Sonny. Nothing. He yelled again. Jimmy, Sonny. Nothing. Again. Jimmy, Sonny. Arf. A little arf. Officer started jogging, yelling his name, getting closer, more barks, more yelling, into some thick palmettos. The barking reached a fevered pitch, full-on yapping. And there he was, curled on the ground in a fetal position, 2 arms wrapped tightly around Sonny. We had found Jimmy, soaked, muddy, skinned up, and a lot worse for wear. But he was alive. We spent the next hour slowly walking and basically carrying him out of the woods. Officers and I cleared a trail ahead of them, moved obstructions. There was a moment as we limped him out of the woods, officer under each arm, another carrying Sonny. His wife rushed up, touched his face, and kissed him softly. And they hugged. It was a special moment. There, in the pouring rain, Jimmy, Sonny, his wife, and the family. Then things started moving quick. EMS took Jimmy, put him in the back of an ambulance, started an IV, and got him off to the hospital for more treatment. Bottled waters were handed out. Body armor was stripped off. Hands went to knees as everyone caught their breath and the adrenaline faded. I wish I could tell you the rain stopped. It didn't. But we stood there. Our shift commander came, handing out Gatorades, and there were tired smiles all around. Chuckles of relief. I circled the officers up. No big debrief, no big speech, but a few words for a group of officers who had just been through hell to save Jimmy. I told them, good job. This is what we do. You gave it your best. And then I asked you for more. Each of you came with me voluntarily when I decided to stop with the reasonable measures and start getting pretty unreasonable. The officers nodded, smiled, looked at each other. There were a couple of fist bumps. One officer who had been back and forth between trying hard and wanting to give up commented, this feels like we did something real. This is the police work that I signed up for. Other officers tried to find the words, trying to express the idea that this call stood out as meaningful to them. I pointed out to some of them, this is where the good stuff is. It's in the dark, it's in the rain, it's in the last place you want to go. It only comes after the pain and the struggle. A leader's plan doesn't mean a thing if a team doesn't have the guts to execute it. They did. It's true for Jimmy and Sonny, and it's true for nearly everything else in life. Happy endings, meaning, purpose, and success, they have a price, and they are worth it. You don't control the situation or the storm. Opportunities to make a real difference in this world come when it is least convenient. There are a million factors and circumstances that aren't up to you, and you don't have a say in the cards that life conspires to deal to you. The one thing you do control, where you have all the power, is in determining who you are when the storm comes and how you carry yourself in the storm. But it takes hard work and discipline. Nothing is given, everything is earned. This is the point of Stoic resiliency. This is the lesson that philosophy teaches. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope this story had some meaning to you and inspired you to practice a little Stoic resiliency of your own. You all take care, and as always, be safe out there.